Lisa Dietlin is an author. She's a philanthropy expert. She's a business owner. She's an inspirational speaker. And she just celebrated the 5th anniversary of when she got hit by a taxi and lived to tell about it. It's a pretty amazing story. The book is called I Got Hit by a Taxi, But You Look Run Over. Lisa Dietlin, thanks for being on the Jen Weigel Show.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be on your show. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And congratulations to you for surviving a hit.
I know. Every day's a gift. Every day's a gift. It literally took the universe knocking me off my feet to realize that.
So this is really what happened, and walk people through, because when I say you got hit, I mean you got knocked out of your fancy pants shoes. And then it ran you over. Come on.
I did.
So, go ahead, you tell.
I was one of those typical workaholics, like a good day was when I only had 7 meetings, a bad day, 14, get my 10,000 steps in, serve on boards, do all that. And I was walking back to my car, and I was on Lake Street, crossing at Post, and a taxi hit me going 35 miles an hour. And the first thing I remembered was, why did my jaw hurt? Because he hit me so hard, he propelled me in the air, and I landed on my buttocks. Can I say buttocks?
Yes, you can.
On the radio. Yep. I landed on my buttocks on the hood of the car with my back to the windshield. My head hit the windshield, and of course, we were careening down to Lower Wacker. They figure he was going 35 miles an hour, and my body turned to where I was looking over my feet at him through the windshield. He had a terrified look. I'm sure I did.
And your shoes were gone, so you were probably going like,
that at that point, but yes, my shoes were already gone. Mm-hmm. And I had 2 thoughts. Those who've been in accidents realize everything goes in slow motion. And I remember seeing the L go by, the tracks there, the green line on Lake Street go by, and thinking, gosh, how long is this going to last? And then I thought about, I am a fun person, but I normally sit backwards on the hood of a car. Like, how am I going to get off?
I'm fun, but not this fun.
How am I going to get off this car?
Right.
And I realized I was sliding backwards. I had on slacks, and I was sliding backwards. So the next thing you know, I'm on the ground. Again, landing on my buttocks, and, with my feet on the ground, my knees bent, and he was not stopping. He was going so fast, he couldn't stop, and that's when he drove over me for the first time.
Okay. And for the first time, obviously your head went back.
My head went back, and I was really conscious, Jen, of protecting my head. I had slammed down my hands and my forearms so that my head didn't hit the pavement. I don't know why I was so conscious of that. I didn't know anybody with a traumatic brain injury. I didn't know anybody who'd had, a brain bleed or anything at that time. I've met a lot of people since then, but I just was very conscious of protecting my head.
Yeah.
And so then he stopped. I remember thinking, this is it. I'm 50. I was 51 at the time. Like, I'm 51 and done. I'm going out by taxi. I thought that's going to be my obituary.
Right.
It's weird what you think about. I was like, oh my gosh.
And this is all happening in a split second. So your life is kind of flashing between, all these things are going on. You're protecting your head. It hits you. It's going over you the first time, you said. Right. So then a second time?
And then he put it in reverse to back the car off of me. And the tires had straddled my body. So it's not like he ran over my legs and back, but
right.
He didn't get out of the vehicle, to check to see if I was hung up under the car. I had my purse, I had my briefcase, all that sort of stuff. And probably that's when I was the most terrified, because it's about 8:20 at night in September, and it gets dark. It's dusk, and I thought the only person who knows that I'm in the middle of the street is driving away. Oh my gosh. And that one block street is a pretty busy access point,
right,
getting onto Lower Wacker or coming off of Lower Wacker onto Lake Street. Thankfully, he stopped. And in the meantime, 2 men ran in, James and Ryan, who I've never seen again. So James and Ryan, if you're listening, I think about you often. Some people have said, do you really think they were your angels? And
right. Do you even know if they were there? Right.
Yeah, were they really there? And they took care of me, figured out who was going to call 911, who was going to direct traffic. And the taxi driver kept saying, I'm sorry. And I thought, well, I get that, but you're the last person I really want to talk to right now.
Right.
Right. And so he must have thought, the taxi driver must have thought that it was taking too long for the ambulance to get there, because at one point he said, what if we put her in the back of my taxi and I take her to the emergency room?
Right. And you're thinking, I really trust your driving, buddy. Next. Okay.
And so the ambulance came, and Rob and Kate were 2 EMS workers, and that's when I realized my shoes had blown off. Rob asked me, he said, Lisa, did you take your shoes off? And I looked down at my feet, Jen, and I was in my stocking feet. And I was like, where are my shoes? Wait a minute. They cost a lot of money. And where are they?
They're a special kind of shoe, too. What kind
they
of
were Donald Pleiners. I love Donald
I'm
Pleiners.
not a shoe gal, but for all the shoe people out there, I guess that's a big deal. So you were knocked out of your Donald Blobbity Blips.
Yeah, my Donald Pleiner shoes were blown, and they found one on the east side of the street, on the side of the by the curb, and the other on the west side on the sidewalk. So literally, they'd blown, east and west, and they found them. And
you're standing at this point, so you've been hit by a taxi going 35 miles an hour.
I don't get up for a long time.
But you are, nothing's broken? You don't have a single broken bone?
Not at this point that they can tell.
Okay.
But because I've been blown out of my shoes, they decide to take me to trauma at Northwestern Hospital.
Okay.
I go, okay, I don't care where you want to take me, just get me off this ground, So they put me on the board and, collar me, and we go, to the hospital, and they bust me in, and there are so many people in this room. I mean, they were really thinking they were getting an accident, and thank goodness we have such good medical services, and there were about 16 people working on me. And the doctor said,
and where's the broken bone? Yeah. Where's the blood? There was no blood.
No blood. And they go, okay. They said, we're going to poke and prod you a lot. And I go, okay. And then they cut off my clothes. Because that's what they do in trauma ER.
Big scissors cuts off the sweater.
Yeah, so the only thought I had was, did I wear matching underwear today? Did I wear matching bra and panty? Because Mama was right. Mama was right. And all my friends who are nurses say, Lisa, that's not what we care about.
I know. But you did.
But I was like, oh my gosh, and they cut off all my clothes, and I'm under this warming blanket, and they're still poking and prodding and doing every x-ray. 4.5 hours.
Wow.
And they could find nothing wrong. Nothing. Halfway through, the one doctor said to the other, has she been drinking?
Right.
And the doc said, no, her blood panel shows no alcohol, no drugs.
Right.
And of course I said, but I was going home to have a drink. I was going home to have a glass of wine.
You'd had quite a day. Before getting hit by the taxi, you'd had quite a day.
I had quite a day. I was very, very busy. I just come from my goddaughter's wedding in St. Louis.
Did you have a fight with somebody in your family?
I was arguing with Mama. I was arguing with her and frustrated, and all those things that aggravate us. But we're trying to do all the right things. We're trying to get in our steps. We're trying to serve on nonprofit boards. We're trying to lead good companies. We're trying to have a good balanced life. And, but I heard a voice.
So when did you hear a voice?
So in between all these tests, they would put me on, I was on this gurney, and they would shove me in the hallway at ER. And there was a sign on the wall, and it said decontamination shower. And I thought it was really interesting. I remember thinking, it's really interesting that I'm parked on this gurney under the sign. And every time they took me for a test and brought me back, they put me under that sign. And there was lots of people, lots of gurneys and people in the ER waiting room and area. And about maybe halfway through the exam, I'm laying there and I'm just being real quiet, and I hear this voice, and this voice says, I'll clean it.
Clean it up. Just say the initials.
It's all BS except happiness and joy. And I remember thinking, who's saying that? And I still have the collar on, so I really can't turn my neck very well. But I'm like, and I kept hearing this phrase, it's all BS except happiness and joy. And I always laugh when I give talks about this. I say, well, and I knew it wasn't me because my favorite swear word rhymes with hockey puck and not the hockey part.
Right, right.
Okay,
BS isn't your go-to. It's not your go-to.
It's not my go-to word. It's it's not a word I use. And I was like, who is saying that? And I'm looking at the doctors and nurses coming in, and everyone's quiet. And I'm looking at the other patients, everyone's quiet. And I realized it was a message for me.
And did at one point ever, did you think, okay, I've been hit really hard by a taxi, am I just hearing things? I mean, is that your logical mind ever?
No, I just kept thinking somebody was talking, like somebody was moaning and going, it's all BS except happiness. I just thought it was another patient sick somewhere.
That's how clear it was for you.
Yeah, that is how clear it was. And I kept looking, and patients are quiet, and their families are sitting next to them, and doctors are coming in and out, and nurses, and everybody's really quiet. And I'm like, who keeps saying this?
Right, yeah.
So after 4.5 hours, they, gave me some ginger ale. They put me in those shoes. They gave me paper scrubs to wear, gave me my clothes in a bag.
Your cut up clothes.
My cut up clothes. I said,
home.
Here you go home.
What, did you take a taxi home in paper clothes?
They wheeled me up and they called a taxi. So I get back in a taxi.
Oh my gosh.
1:30 in the morning.
In paper scrubs.
And paper scrubs, making sure they don't rip. And And I get home and I say to the taxi driver, can you watch me get in my house? And he goes, why? And I said, well, I got hit by a taxi. And he goes, what? And I go, well, if I fall, I just want to fall on the inside of my house. And, no Vicodin, no Valium, no Tylenol. I mean, and I literally got up and went to work the next day.
Whoa.
There wasn't a broken bone. When I left, the one doc said, go home and have that glass of wine, Lisa. You earned it today.
No concussion?
Nope.
Unbelievable. So you were caught by angels.
I was caught by angels and sat on the ground. And, a few days later, I had the opportunity to go to Detroit and see Oprah. She was doing the Live the Life You Love weekend.
Right.
It was the first one. And I took my 20-year-old niece, and she was deciding, what she was going to do. She was 2 years into college trying to figure it out. And we're not big Oprah devotees in our family. I mean, and she certainly wasn't as a millennial. She didn't know anything about her. So Oprah comes out and she tells her story about her life. And Oprah says, and I believe that you hear this whisper, and the whisper tells you, or you might call it your gut, your intuition, go right, go left, go up, go down. And if you don't listen to the whisper, the universe is going to start throwing bricks at you. And if you don't pay attention to those bricks, the universe is going to let you hit a brick wall. To which my 20-year-old niece turns to me and she goes, Aunt Lisa, I think you hit the brick wall.
Well, truly, because they basically had to drop the anvil on your head for you to slow down, Lisa. Everybody who knows you and loves you, Lisa Dietlin, is like, slow down, Lisa. Do. So it takes you getting hit by a taxi, not having a bone broken, not having a scratch, for you to realize that it's all BS except happiness and joy.
Absolutely. And so every day I try to live that life, that gift that I have, And as I said, before the accident, I hadn't met anybody with a TBI, traumatic brain injury, or anybody who had lived in an accident where they were a perfectly functioning individual, an engineer, a scientist, whatever, and after weren't able to live that life. And now I've had the great privilege of meeting those people and realizing truly what a gift it was, because anything could have happened, anything could have happened in that moment. And it truly was that I have a mission on earth to say to people, okay, time out. And Jen, we have a friendship outside of our professional lives, and we have a lot of fun. I'm always the first one to say, let's do something. Let's try something.
Yes.
I'm always trying to make stuff up,
like, okay, I'm going to trapezing, and like, excuse me, I'm going to throw some axes. I'm like, you go do that. You're always thinking outside the box, Lisa. I'm very much in my container, and you're swinging from trapezes.
Wait till you hear the next thing I've got cooking.
What? Deep sea fishing?
We'll talk off air.
Okay. But before this even happened, Lisa, I met you because you had been writing inspirational books. I did a story on you for the Chicago Tribune, the Remarkable Woman column, one of my beats when I was a writer for the Chicago Tribune. And you were remarkable before you got hit by the taxi. And you'd written a bunch of books then. So we're going to talk about, in a little bit, I want to talk about those other books, but talk to me really quickly here before we take our break about the power of three and how important it is. Every day you have this, motto. You do 3 things to forward your dreams, to forward your momentum, and it's simple things. So give the listeners a quick tip on the power of 3.
Well, The Power of 3 is my 5th book, and it was written because it came out. I'm, as you said, an expert in philanthropy, but I started out being a fundraiser. And, making calls and asking people for money isn't fun. And, you can have a list. And I had a list of 500, and it was that old adage, how to eat an elephant a bite at a time. Do 3 things a day. And I've now parlayed that into my life. Every day I do 3 things toward my goal. No matter what it is, I do 3 things. I also do 3 things to take care of the world and my contribution to the world every day, and then I try to do 3 things for me. So for the world, I do simple things like every day I try to pick up a piece of trash and put it in the right receptacle. I live near the 606, and there'll be a beer can, a pop can, a coffee cup, whatever, and I'll pick it up and I'll put it in the right receptacle, because I grew up with the Put Litter in Its Place campaign.
Absolutely.
With the Native American in the canoe on the river and the tear coming down the cheek about litter in the 70s and early 80s. So I do that. Every day I try to write a piece of personal correspondence to someone. When was the last time you got a handwritten note in the mail that said, hey, I was just thinking about you, or hey, I saw this article, or hey, I saw that you got this award. I had some friends actually send me handwritten notes on the 5th anniversary of the taxi accident.
Nice.
And it meant so much to me. And then the third thing I do, which every listener in your audience could do is I pay a genuine compliment to someone. We are so ready to criticize right now in our society, and we are so lacking in willingness to give a compliment to someone, to say, hey, great show. Hey, great comment you made in that meeting with me. Hey, thanks for standing up for me. Hey, thanks for making that pot of coffee at the office. Hey, thanks for watching the kids while I ran to the grocery store. Whatever it is, pay a compliment to somebody. Thank them. If we were just a little bit kinder, the world might be a little bit better place. Yep.
It's all BS except happiness and joy.
It is.
Yeah.
And we spend so much time being miserable. We think life has to be hard. One of my mantras growing up was like, if it's going to be worth anything, it's going to be hard. And that is not true.
Yeah.
I mean, life is supposed to be easy and beautiful and wonderful, and we should accept that. And it doesn't mean that we don't have to plot and plan and strive for things, but life isn't difficult.
So now, in addition to what Angie brought to us with the information,
I think it's so important what Lynn Sage Foundation is doing and the research. But I think it's really important for listeners to think about where they want to give support. And obviously, she shared that Lynn's daughters cared about research.
Right.
And so if you provide a donation there, it's to fund research. Some people care about survivors. They want to make sure that people have wigs, or that they can, get to have chemo treatment or get their mammograms. Some people care about survivors. They want to make sure that people have wigs, or that they can, get to have chemo treatment or get their mammograms. Some people care about survivors, that they've survived it. How do they get their bills taken care of? I always say, be a smart donor. If you want to give to research, it's great. If you want to give to survivors, it's great. If you want to give to those going through treatment or for access, just do a little research to make sure that you're affecting change where you most want it to happen.
So, and then another thing you were telling me in the commercial break, and I said, oh my gosh, we have to talk about this, is that people think when they give the week of Thanksgiving that it's going to those in need on Thanksgiving. That's usually not the case. You should sort of be ahead of the curve. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We're coming into the season of food and holidays, and it's amazing what Lynn Sage Foundation is doing with the 200 restaurants, but hunger exists all the time.
Right.
People are hungry all the time, and children are hungry, and we see this, and it's a poverty issue. It's not a laziness issue. It's not a nutrition issue. It's a poverty issue, an economic issue. So many of us start to think about it when we're doing our shopping for our holiday turkey, and most of us shop the week of Thanksgiving, to get the fresh turkey and the fresh greens or the vegetables or whatever we're going to serve. But realize that will not help put a Thanksgiving meal on a person's table the week of Thanksgiving. You got to plan a week or two out because of the distribution process. It's going to be used. I want listeners to know it will be used, and probably be used at the next holiday, which is for a lot of people, the Christmas holiday. It will be used. But if you want to affect change and make sure that everybody in your community has a turkey on their table, and you want to donate a turkey and you want to donate all the fixings, work with your local food bank, your local pantry, and find out when their distribution is. Usually you have to be a week ahead of time, just like we want to make our pies and our sides and our special dishes a few days ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. So do people who live in a world of poverty. They need
notice. Well, how do you know where your local food pantry
Go
is?
to Feeding America.
Okay.
Feeding America. Every county in this country is covered by a food bank.
Okay.
And the way I describe it is the food bank is like the grocery store.
Okay.
And then the food pantries are, back it up. The food bank is like the warehouses, and the food pantries are like the grocery stores where people can go and access the food.
Got it.
The food banks exist to cover every county in this country. There are more than 200 of them. So if you simply put in your zip code, it'll come up with the food bank. You go to that food bank, or there's a link to click there, and you'll find what's in your neighborhood and what's in your community.
Okay, perfect. And if people want to learn more about you, LisaDietlin.com. It's LisaDietlin.com.